Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Flore, where we talk about fantasy and lore from the ground up. I'm your host, Aaron.
I'm Joe Bondowski.
And I'm Eli.
We do in-depth lore podcasts for games, movies, TV shows, and different worlds of mythology in our culture.
One of us does an in-depth research on our topic. One of us is familiar with the topic.
And one of us knows nothing. So the right questions will always be asked and will be addressed for anyone coming into the topic, regardless of how much you know.
All right, so today we are going to be covering the Siege of Dragonspear, and this is a debated addition to the Baldur's Gate Chronicles. We'll talk about why, and then we'll go into kind of the backstory behind the lore events that are tied into the Siege of Dragonspear, and we'll go through the story itself. We'll do the really short summary like we did for Baldur's Gate, and then we'll do the longer narrative that covers some of the bigger pieces and the companions and all of that today.
This is right after Baldur's Gate 1, right?
Yes. Siege of Dragonspear starts like the day after the end of Baldur's Gate. So the original two games, the first game ends and you're the hero of Baldur's Gate and you're living in this huge castle. And then Baldur's Gate 2 starts and you're the prisoner in a dungeon, and you never get this gap filled in.
And that's what this one is.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. So Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 were produced, I think, late 90s, early 2000s. And the Siege of Dragonspear is not made until, I think, 2012. What happened is a kind of long story, more about companies. Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 were originally made by BioWare and Black Isle. And then eventually a company named Beamdog took over the rights. And they began developing what was called the Enhanced Editions. So in the very beginning, they were just updating Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 so it could be played on newer operating systems and computers. And then they moved into creating the Enhanced Editions. Finally, they wanted to create additional content. And that is where the Siege of Dragonspear comes in. And it kind of spurns out of the fact, like, when they create the Enhanced Editions, they introduce a few new companions to come with you on your journey as well. That's why Dragonspear is kind of debated as to whether or not you count it as part of the Baldur's Gate series. A lot of players never played it because they didn't buy the Enhanced Editions. It was created by a different group of people much later. And,
the fact that we're covering it kind of means that we sort of see it as canon, but it's up to your own discretion, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that it is a debated additional piece of the story. But we will be talking about some big things that really tie into Baldur's Gate 3. So we'll be doing
real quick, what system is it in? Because I remember after Baldur's Gate 2, they had lost the license to use the AD&D system.
What does that mean?
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So this is
the rules to it.
So because they were the rules were what, 2 point something for the original, like,
so
Baldur's
this
Gate
is
1 and 2?
Kind of a long story. Walking through the editions of Dungeons and Dragons, you have like what's called first edition, second edition, and even then that's a foggy line. And then you have the very famous third edition, and then 3.5, and then fourth
People
edition
did not
and
like
fifth edition.
3.5. Wait, no, people liked 3.5. They did not like the fourth edition, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So what happened is every once in a while they would update the rules to the game. And so whenever you update the rules to the game, what that means when you're talking in-game lore and different things like this is basically a change to the fundamental physics of their universe. So anytime you have a new edition of Dungeons and Dragons, you have a huge lore event. And we've talked about some of these, like Abir and Toril, the planet being torn into two separate planets. That is the transition from first edition to second edition. We talked about how the gods were all put in mortal form and some of them are killed. And so again, major physics changes to the world. And that's actually the transition from 3.4 to 3.5 because there were some big changes there, but not, massively huge.
Can you give examples as to, like, what would some of those physics, like, changes be as far as, like, gameplay? Because some people haven't played D&D.
1 and 2 is actually more like regular Dungeons and Dragons and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was designed for people who just really wanted to get nerdy and deep on the math and the dice and really dive into complex combat situations.
But like the original one, like you could play it with children. It was simple enough.
Yeah.
They could just know basic math and they could get their way through it.
That's the one that I need to play. I don't need none of that math in my life. Gross.
So 3.0 was a huge change to the game. It simplified things a lot, and it introduced the iconic 20-sided dice to the game, which you basically roll for everything, and then you just add your modifiers to it. And so a lot of all the extra dice were removed from the game. You needed the 20-sider, and then occasionally just different weapons had different dice. But other than that, you're basically just rolling that one dice a lot.
And then skills also became a much bigger, important kind of thing. That it really grew during this time period.
Yeah. So most people who think of Dungeons and Dragons, they think of 3.5 onward, because that's when we had the introduction of the feats. Before 3.5, you're rolling the d20, but you don't have feats yet. So, Aaron, when you first jumped into Dungeons and Dragons, I remember you looked at that big list, be like, I only get to pick one out of this huge list. And I pointed out, be like, that whole list is not designed for you to get as much as possible. That whole list is designed to really let you create a very unique character to do the things you want it to do, whether you're focused on using two weapons or
you said unique, and then you were like, yeah, but the best thing to pick for this type of character is this. So I don't think he was that unique if you already knew what you wanted me to be.
So, well, you had told me, you said, I want to be a paladin tank. And so I was like, okay,
yeah, that's true. What was it, two-handed or something?
Early on, you just need to up your damage in those early quests.
Dude, the cleric is a better paladin than the paladin in DDO. I stand by that. Way better player. Like I did the paladin, got to level 5 or something, still couldn't like heal my teammates. Get in as cleric, get a mace, and I can heal people at like level 2.
So
way better.
You have to understand that in Dungeons and Dragons, like paladins don't even get spells until level 6. So
yeah, no, I understood that. That's why I did cleric that time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
we were talking about Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, so Siege of Dragonspear. So let's talk about what is the Siege of Dragonspear. So first of all, Dragonspear is a castle. It's a keep.
Wait, you didn't answer my question though. What system is it in?
So you get the same choices as you do in the Baldur's Gate. So you can do standard Dungeons and Dragons, and then you can do advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, okay.
So you get options.
So, but they do not include 3.5 because Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 was 3.4, and that they stayed true to that in the Siege of Dragonspear. Okay. So Dragonspear is a castle, not far north of Baldur's Gate.
Wait, that is something.
So have you ever seen the oatmeal cartoon about the Game of Thrones? This guy, he really wants to watch Game of Thrones, and for a moment he considers getting the torrent. But then his conscience kicks in and be like, no, these are actors and artists and writers and creators, and they're working hard to create this awesome thing that people can enjoy. And he's like, you're right, I should support it. So he goes to Amazon, and he looks, and he can't rent it, and he can't buy it. And he goes to Netflix, and he goes to Hulu, and he goes everywhere, all over the internet. And so eventually he goes to HBO specifically, but because of the country he lives in, he can't even get HBO. So he literally cannot buy the Game of Thrones. So he downloads the torrent. That's not a problem with Flore. If you want to support us, just go to the Patreon and you can join just at that $1 level. If some of the other perks appear to you at the higher tier, go higher. But just you can support us just like he was trying to but couldn't. Okay, so we're talking about the first War of Dragonspear, and there was a portal in Dragonspear Keep. And they had, during the war, they had dragged a lot of people back into hell. So there was a character named Kalar Argent, and she is known as the Shining Lady. And she has gathered an army, and she calls it a crusade, with the intention of capturing Dragonspear Keep and then laying siege to the devils inside to rescue those who were lost during the first war of Dragonspear. Okay, so that's kind of the backstory there, and kind of the whole goal behind it. So Kalar Argent is she's moving her army across the northern part of the Baldur's Gate territory. She's not necessarily attacking the city. Now, to really understand why her crusade moving across the realm is such a big deal, you need to understand armies throughout the history of the world. You have to understand, up until the end of the Second World War, it took an entire nation put on rations to feed an army, and even then it would still be insufficient and armies would go hungry, right?
And you're talking in real life World War II.
In real world.
Okay, so this is why you should always, if you're going to start a war with anyone, you use lizard folk as your army. You guys know why, right?
Because they can eat the dead.
They can eat the dead. Well,
so this is my mom. She died though, so we're gonna eat her. You guys hungry? Like,
so what I want to point out here is it takes a massive effort to feed an army, and Kalar Argent does not have a nation supporting her army. It is purely just mercenaries and crusaders who believe in her cause. And so as this army moves across the countryside, they are devouring everything they can find. They are ransacking every farm and every cattle field because there's no nation, no city-state that is helping feed them. They have to feed themselves. And so it sends
they have to get their own supplies.
Yeah, it sends these massive waves of refugees to Baldur's Gate and the other big cities because they've had everything taken from them. And when we're talking about farmers, when this army moves through and eats all their crops, they're also eating the seeds for the next year. And so there's nothing left. These people's entire way of life is just wiped out as these armies are moving through. And a lot of them end up joining the army because that's all they can do. And the rest are refugees to Baldur's Gate.
Okay. Real quick question. Because you said
survivors.
You said crusaders and mercenaries who believe in her cause.
So, yeah. So
mercenaries don't believe in causes. They just believe in money.
Right. The crusaders believe in her cause.
Okay. So she's hiring people.
Yeah.
To pay them a pretty good wage, but also she's got crusaders with them. I wonder how well those two get along because it's two very different walks of life.
It is. This becomes a huge problem for what's known as the Lord's Alliance. This is Baldur's Gate. This is Water's Deep. This is just the really big cities in the area have formed this alliance together, and it becomes a really big problem for them because all of their subjects are suddenly having their farmlands just destroyed by this marching army as it's feeding itself. They want to stop this, so they form their coalition, right? You have the Flaming Fist from Baldur's Gate, which we talked about, and then you've got soldiers from other parts of this, and you are then drafted into this army as well to go take care of Kalar Argent.
Okay, so the main character she is the bad person here.
So that's the way it starts out. So the short summary here is you eventually march on Dragon Spear. You get trapped in the Nine Hells with Kalar Argent, and you rescue the souls that are trapped there, and then you escape. And that's the really short version, right? You go to the Nine Hells, you rescue the people there, and you escape.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Flore. If you liked what you were hearing, or even if you didn't, feel free to leave us a review or comment down below. We'd love to get some feedback. We want to know, what did we miss? What do you want to hear more about? What did Eli and Joe get wrong? Obviously, I got nothing wrong. If you see our ads, like, comment, or even share them. That means that helps us know that they're working. And please tell your friends about us. We'd love to get some more feedback. We love being able to share our passion for lore with you, and we'd love you to be able to share it with your friends. Send us corrections. We do as much research as we can, but I'm sure a lot of you can imagine D&D, basically any in-depth lore. There's a lot of stuff we could have missed. Please tell your friends about us. We love being able to share our passion for lore with you, and if you like it too, we'd love for you to be able to share it with your friends. And please send us corrections. We do the research. We try our best, but this is D&D we're talking about. There's probably so much stuff we've missed. And please, send us corrections. We do our research. We do our best, but this is D&D. I'm sure there's something we missed or didn't quite expound on as much as you might have liked. So please send us corrections or suggestions for the next episodes. If you do want to talk to us or have us do a specific episode, either leave a comment below or email us at flore, FLORE, .fantasylore@gmail.com. Again, that's flore, FLORE, .fantasylore@gmail.com. You can find us on patreon.com/florefantasyandlore, Thanks again so much for listening. And now that we have given you the foundation and the floor, go and build your story.